Hey everyone, Ariel Adams here with aBlogtoWatch. Please subscribe to our videos on YouTube and like this video if you find it useful. This is a review of the Chopard L.U.C Lunar One limited edition in platinum. I want to apologize in advance because there's plastic on this watch. I am a little bit nervous about taking off the protective plastic. I'll probably do it for the photographs, but while I'm wearing it, I don't want to do that. That's because this case is platinum, and platinum, among other things, is relatively fragile. It scratches quite easily, probably a little bit easier than gold, but platinum has an undeniable sense of appeal. It's like, it's a precious metal, but it's somehow manly. I don't know why. Maybe it's the name platinum that sounds really cool. Platinum is heavy, and it's something which is very personal to the owner. If you just saw this watch from across the room, you wouldn't think twice. You would think that it's steel, possibly white gold. You'd have to actually know this watch and be like, hey, that's platinum. If you held the watch in your hand, you're like, that is platinum, because platinum is even heavier than white gold. And yes, it is finished slightly differently, meaning when you polish it, it has a slightly different look. But for the most part, the appeal of platinum is in that emotional element, that it's more exclusive than gold, that it's more expensive than gold. Well, sometimes it's more expensive than gold. That it's hard to machine, and that it's sort of the ultimate, I'll call it traditional precious metal watch case material. And anyways, this watch is in platinum. The limited edition element of this is just the blue colored, nice alligator strap, as well as this blue colored dial. There are other versions, of course, of the Chopard Lunar One that have been around for probably over a decade now. This is not the newest watch, but it is aging quite nicely. Let's put it on, because I think this watch is very handsome, and I happen to like the size a lot. It's the type of watch that I believe some people may feel is on the larger side for a dress watch, which I can understand that. How big do you think it is? I actually feel that it looks larger than the 43 millimeter wide dimensions that it is. For whatever reason, I put this thing on, I feel like, is this a 45 millimeter watch? It's a 43 millimeter watch. So it actually doesn't wear big when you think about it, but it has a very commanding presence, and maybe that's because of the weight, as well as the, well, not the thinnest bezel in the world, but very sort of expansive dial space. L.U.C watches by Chopard represent their highest end within the Chopard family. That's its own facility. I've been there. It's quite nice. And I love the finishing on the movements. The finishing on the L.U.C movements is fantastic. And the movements are very smart and interesting, and they do cool stuff. This one doesn't have all the sort of newest technology that you see in some of the newer L.U.C watches, but this one is still, like I said, aging quite well. And when I say not as much technology, there is something called Quattro, which is a 4-barrel system for the power reserve. So there's 4 mainspring barrels. This one has just 2. And in some of the 4-barrel ones, watches like this will have a power reserve of, well, not this exact model, but 8 days. This one, I believe, has I believe it's 60 hours of power reserve. I could be wrong. I don't always have these details right in front of me, but it's a decent amount of power reserve. This watch lacks a power reserve indicator, which is the only thing that I wish it had. It is an automatic, which is nice, and that makes things convenient. Let me undo the strap here so that you can fully appreciate the movement. If I can do that. Sometimes these straps, when I put on the smallest setting because of my small wrists, let's take the plastic off there. I'm weird about plastic. Some people make fun of me. They're like, why is the plastic still on here? I'm like, to protect it. But see, now you get to see a nice, fresh case back. No dirt or anything like that. And that movement is very, very nice. Extremely nice finishing. And when I say nice finishing, what do I mean? Well, it's hand finishing. Of course, there are machine elements of it. It's shiny, and that sounds weird to say as though that's a good thing, but like a good shiny movement means that it has a very nice level of polish. So for example, this element right here has a flat polish, which means someone had to polish it on a flat plane in order to get a mirror polish. Sometimes when these are machined, they're not perfectly flat, and you don't get as much attractive reflectivity. The micro rotor is in solid, I think 21 or 22 karat gold, it says on there. The anglage is great, all the edging, swan neck fine regulation system. It's a combination of really good traditional aesthetics, but really operates like a relatively modern, robust movement. Functionality, the Lunar One is a perpetual calendar. And it's a perpetual calendar with a little twist. Well, actually, I take that back. The perpetual calendar itself does not have a twist. It's in the moon phase indication system. So as a perpetual calendar, you have in this subdial, there's two hands. The smaller one is for the leap year, and the larger hand is for the month. And then over here in this other subdial, adjacent to it, is an AM/PM indicator, as well as the day of the week. The date is indicated as a big day indicator at the top, and down here is a moon phase indicator, as well as the subsidiary seconds dial. Now, as I'm moving this dial around, you can probably notice all the hands, but I do have a pretty valid concern that some of the smaller hands are hard to see. Now, you can make a value judgment as to whether or not you really need to see the month and the day of the week hand as legibly as you do the date and the time. And if you want to, again, focus on priorities, I think that Chopard made the correct decision of having the hour and minutes be the easiest thing to see with those nice, properly sized, large loomed hands, and the date, which is also really easy to see. Sometimes I wonder if the date discs were a similar style as the blue dial, meaning the color was the same, if that would look nicer, but I don't mind it like this. But the hands that go to the day of the week as well as the month are basically invisible unless you move the dial around. They're very hard to see, they're thin, which is really weird because if you see here, there's a kind of a stubby arrow hand that also has a loom for the AM/PM indicator, and you have the same type of hand for the leap year indicator. So my question is, what do you actually need to know more, the leap year or the month? I would argue you need to know the month more. So it should be reversed to me. The hand which is hard to see should be the one for the leap year, whereas the one to see the day of the week should be easier to see. So having said that, I'll move on. The moon phase indicator is what's known as an orbital moon phase indicator, and it's a little bit more interesting than sort of the standard moon phase indicators that a lot of people come accustomed to, where there is a single disk underneath, and I call it the McDonald's M-shaped window. I think you know what I'm talking about. So that when the disk for the moon moves across it, it creates the shape that you think of when you think of a moon which is waxing or waning. This one has a single window with a disk that moves within it. It looks a little bit more attractive. And then this entire disk right here, which has small stars, which according to Chopard are representative of some part of the sky with actual stars, which is cool. That entire mechanism moves around. So what does that mean? That means the moon would move around this small dial while it's changing its shape across the 28 day or approximately 29 day period of the moon phase, which is cool. That's interesting. It's neat. It's not really functional. It's an emotional thing, and that's quite nice. So let's put that watch back on. Sometimes I really wish these just had standard, normal deployance. I really like this strap, by the way. In the written part of the review, I spend a lot of time talking about this strap. It's very pliable, so it moves easily. It's comfortable. It looks nice on both sides. It almost looks like a double-sided strap. Like if this was the side of the strap that was on the outside, I don't think that I would have a problem with that. And you don't really see that in a lot of straps. The underside looks, well, not great at best. So you have this nice brown color with this blue contrast stitching, and then you have the blue strap on the outside, which matches the dial quite nicely. And blue is a hot color these days for watches. Blue has always been in. I hate when people are like, oh, this color is so hot now. Well, it's not like they just invented orange last week. So again, this is the Chopard L.U.C Lunar One. This is a limited edition of 100 pieces in platinum. Retail price for this is, I actually think, quite reasonable given what you get, the case material, the in-house movement, that it's a nice movement, that it's a perpetual calendar. Retail price is $69,260. Again, not cheap. But for what you get, I think it's hard to find a better value elsewhere for similar type of watch. You can see the full review on aBlogtoWatch. Thanks.